Sure. I think Asphyxia asked me to talk about EOS and maybe answer any questions anybody has. I know it's been a pretty confusing week, I think, for a lot of people who've been following it. So it makes sense to have somebody answer some of the questions. And then in the chat, I just posted an example of doing in the white paper. I'm trying to take the load off of coding from Asphyxia and trying to work on the white paper so he doesn't have to, because I think his time is better spent, actually in the code for now, while I look over the crypto, like economics part of it, which is much better done in a white paper format. So I guess I'll start with, the current plans for if we're going to use EOS or not. As we talked about before, that network, as far as joining that network, it's very early on. We're expecting a lot of bugs, because it's so fresh. And there's new Bitcoin bug released, for example, today about weaknesses in the leaf nodes, for example. So even if the network's pretty old, it has still a lot of bugs. And if it's new, it's just going to be enormous. So I think it makes sense to not to worry too much about their network, but just worry about our own launch. And it's pretty trivial to do since anybody can run their own node, like I am right now on a test server where I can deploy smart contracts and test them as much as I want, and we can launch it as our own chain completely or another chain. It doesn't make a difference to us. So I think that's still going forward. And if anybody's been watching the EOS launch, it's been pretty hectic. I don't know, anybody's following it?
I haven't been myself, but what's been going on with it?
I'll quickly summarize it because I think I saw a lot of like random news pop up about it, and everybody's just guessing what's happening. But basically, they decided to launch the chain in a public manner so that the actual company who's writing it is not launching it. So you have these like several hundred wannabe block producers that are trying to all start basically producing the chain, but they decided they don't want to have 300 different chains. So because they thought it'd be too confusing, for users to have to choose between many different chains. And Block One doesn't want to touch it or anything because they think it'll be too much control they show over it, and the public's going to control it anyway in the end. So it shouldn't be their job to launch the chain. So you have these 300 people working in the chat room trying to, in somehow like in a fair to each other way to organize the initial voting and initial launch. And if it looks very strange and people think it's like, a big conspiracy of like some kind of, how to say it, like a collusion of launching a private chain and colluding so that they get picked or something. It's very unclear. There's a lot of news flying around like who gets to choose the initial block producers, but in the end, it doesn't matter because as soon as the other people start voting, all the users will start moving around in the rank. I mean, all the block producers will start moving around in rank, and the top 21 is going to be always changing. It's not really a big issue. But if you ever looked into it, like into the news, maybe on Twitter or subreddits or something, you probably saw a lot of chaos because everybody's confused what's happening. And I'm not really looking forward to right now even touching the main chain or whatever it becomes. It's not even clear right now. I think they launched today or yesterday, finally, after like 250 of them voted yes to do it. But for now, it doesn't stop development basically because we don't have to use the live contracts to test our code. That's pretty much, I don't know if I summarized it well enough, but it's just chaos. And I just wanted to point out that it's not relevant to development.
So basically it's going to work itself out. But I think we talked about that last meeting, that it was possible that that this could happen with anybody launching their own chain and kind of creating this confusion. Lutz asked,
yeah, basically, in worst case scenario, we launch our own chain, right?
Yeah.
That means it's all fully our own. We don't have to worry even about the other chain. And I believe this is a lot like don't know if you guys heard about the Loom sidechain. It's basically just a way to like have a sidechain that's standalone, but it's tethered to smart contracts and onto its like parent platform. So it's like child chains in a way, um, and that's the way EOS is supposed to like run. You have like these so-called DApp chains where on their own network they're the current coin, but then when they're transferred to the main chain, they're the token. And this way you can have tokens slash coins moving between main chain to child chains and back.
Right.
And that's the backup plan as well. It literally doesn't change the contract writing too much.
Okay.
Um,
So, Lutz had asked, what are you developing now, and when can we see something with that? And I know you just sent this picture of the Novusphere structure that I have up on my screen. Um, can we walk through that? Is that something that could answer the question?
yeah, I think. I mean, if you saw the white paper, it was a lot of it was cut away, unfortunately. So I've been trying to expand on it and make it more technical over time. Uh, right now, I'm trying to make it more readable in a more readable format so that it's clear what are the different roles, what their incentives are. Do they require bonds? Do they not require bonds? What is their income? So you can start looking at the incentives for each part. There's still more details need to be done, which can't be all written on the same figure, but I think it's much more clear now, at least, that in this typical scheme that the user, the voter, is in control of basically every aspect. Let's see. So Asphyxia, I think, published some development layer for the database. I guess he's still working on that, but that's his recent release. I'm not going to comment on it because I haven't played around with it enough. Okay, let's see. Code Blue, I think, was working on something front end. And I'm looking at the white paper, and I've been also making these prototype contracts on EOS, test server I have. Ideally, me and Asphyxia are going to have a meeting, and we're going to try to connect that to the, that's going to connect to his app development layer. And then we have this inner working system.
Okay, so you're getting ready to connect kind of the front end of what Code Blue had been working on to the back end.
Yeah, well, we're gonna. The contract system is pretty tricky. You have to write it in C, and you have to ensure there is no overflow errors. And the logic is not that difficult. We've written it out in English many times now. Who gets what, how much, at what conditions? But this has to be converted properly to the contracts. And in the Novusphere structures, you see like there's the general role we had for witnesses, and that still remains basically even if we run on top of contracts, because we need nodes to witness the atmosphere related actions on the blockchain, and parse the data and create the database, and a lot of them will be providing public gateways or public nodes at least with APIs so that people can read the data, fetch the data basically.
You said, in your opinion, when do you think Atmos would have a proper MVP working? Or how far do you think we're away from seeing something?
Minimum viable product, yeah. Let's see. Oh god, I hope it's not. I hope it's not a. Oh my god.
Year, 2
I hope
years?
it's
No,
not a year.
I don't think so.
I really wish Asphyxia was here because he determines the quality of the. I mean, you can always put something out like in a few days if you wanted to make it really rough. But I guess I have to think about the level of care we do.
As far as the testnet, though, stuff is going, you've already got Code Blue working on. I don't know if you have a link for anything latest that he's provided that we could show.
Yeah, Code Blue is working on front end stuff, I believe, and so it's people. We have a middle, basically layer that's Fix has been working on. Are we using EOS or not? I think we decided we will probably write it in EOS and on our own chain at first, and deploy it either on the main network on our own network later. It won't be different significantly code wise, so it's not going to be wasted code regardless. We can use everything we write basically. I think the main chain makes more sense for censorship resistance, to be honest, because it'll be a lot easier to not only get on ramps and off ramps at exchanges, but it'll also hide our traffic among other app traffics, and it's good to be part of a bigger network for that. And if we get censored, we will have to do something else. But I don't think that's going to be a big issue. We're not that big right now, and if we are, we always can form other places where we can put the network. No, those are good questions, and I mean, a timeline.
Yeah, I mean,
I do like timelines, to be honest, a lot.
I think we're all interested.
I believe they're important. I'm just not
in the roadmap
in the position
timeline
to make
of things. I think we're all kind of interested in where that's going, how soon we can start testing or posting our own movies on like the test net or whatever. So
yeah, we're waiting for Code Blue. Code Blue is working on the interface specifically for searching and finding movies or video interfaces, but he says he wants to generalize it as well, so it'll be useful for other things, just as a way to add filters and look for content in a way that's not going to be limited. That could be. It's going to be pretty messy. Users can submit a lot of different things under a lot of different names, so it has to be general enough to work for all of that. And I do agree that probably it's good to start with a simple case of just having MVP, basically minimum viable product. I didn't expect to be the only one person here for now, but
so with the things going on with EOS, does that kind of set you guys back a little bit, or is that a concern at all now that EOS may be more of a long-term or even a short-term concern with what's going on? Or do you just see that not really being relevant?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so here's if we think the main chain is not ready, right? The main EOS chain is not ready for our app, or it's too expensive or something, we literally just take the code of the blockchain and we make it our own. We reduce the demands of it a bit, but we still launch the same contracts just on our own chain. It'll be same as we copied for example, a lot of people copy the Blackcoin wallet, right? And they modify it somewhat for their own use and use it as a baseline. We can do the same thing with EOS code. We don't need half-second block time necessarily. We can reduce the bandwidth requirements and still use the exact same code, deploy the smart contracts in the exact same way we did it on our test net, and the same way we did it on we would do it on the EOS mainnet, just on our own network. We would call Novusphere, using the same code base.
Right.
So whatever we write, if it's on the EOS based or if it's private based, it doesn't matter because the deployment will be the same.
Right, so that would carry over just fine to EOS. I guess the concerns with doing your own blockchain is time, maybe bandwidth. Is that accurate enough? Or
the blockchain is already written. It'd be launched the exact same way that any blockchain is launched. We probably wouldn't do the whole 250 person quorum. We just start with one producer. We'd remove the minimum requirement for the launch and just have people join in as with whatever amount of coins they got. Ideally, you want to have a better distribution of stake. Maybe I think EOS did a pretty good job at distribution, but it'll be enough to make it work just the same as it's working now, just in a faster blockchain that can have a lot of this use cases like no fees and stuff like that. Would the movie project have its own name? I don't think it'll have its own name, but there'll be interfaces focused on just movies. So it'll be filtering all the data for movies, but the same exact interface is agnostic for the content it should have eventually.
At movies. I mean, anybody? Do you think that other people could kind of piggyback off of it and create their own name, but know that the source is the Novusphere uh, blockchain, or know that
I
it's
think
your infrastructure and have their own data sources for movies?
I think there'll be a lot of double, like if there's somebody else launches the same network, it'll make sense that a lot of movies posted to one network will be linked to the other. There'll be a lot of you know
Cross
like
implementation for the
yeah,
same
the
one.
origin of the who like pinned the original IPFS hash might be used. The same one could be used for multiple different places. Like somebody could put it on a D video, this Teams video site, right? Um, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's theirs. It could be like anything. We don't really have control over like what kind of content goes on it, right? If it's original or somebody makes something and posts it on 10 different websites, um, steal somebody's work, it's possible as well. There's just no way for us to control it, or where the content comes from. But what we have control over is creating these incentives for providing content. So if somebody wants a new picture of a cat, original or something that doesn't show up on reverse Google search, they could request it on the network. And there's no reason for somebody not to provide a picture. There's always somebody willing to, at some kind of level of bounty, to do some service, right? If I put up 100 Atmos, I'll probably get some responses.
So
It
basically,
doesn't
that
matter if it,
leaves that leaves the quality up to the users on the using Atmos to be the judges and voters for that kind of quality assurance.
yeah, it's basically money hanging in the air, and somebody's going to try to claim it, try to fulfill some request if they can, or they'll try to cheat, but there'll be also some kind of use, and it'll be interesting to see how we resolve cheating.
Cool. Um, any other questions on that? Or
I'm gonna try to get a more of an outline, I think, for the timeline. I do think it's important to have some kind of at least rough quarter estimation at the least, of when everybody can expect all the parts.
right?
Um, I always underestimate how long it's going to take. If you ask me right now, I'd say a month would be enough, but I've made that mistake several times, and it's taken longer time already.
Yeah, I think um, it's very easy to underestimate these kind of projects, and then you run into some things that you overestimate as well. That's part of running through the agile development process and figuring out exactly what parts, what moving pieces to this takes how much amount of time, and be able to estimate them in the future a lot more accurately. Um, Code Blue
I
says that
see
he's
Code Blues
feeling
in the
sick.
chat. Very sick. Yeah. You can just post something and we can just discuss it quickly or something. You don't have to talk if you can't. I was sick last week. I just had to not talk.
Anything that we can expect over the next couple weeks that we should all be looking out for?
I think now that we have a white paper, we can at least get some more on and off ramps. I think that's important for uh, making it fair for people to get in and out if they want to of the network. It'll be important later. So if one of the exchanges has issues, we still have some kind of access to the platform. Um, that was a big part of it, I think, just to get it out there so it's more official looking. uh, I want to commit to something. I'm not sure. I mean, you can, for me, my part, you can expect consistent white paper updates at Hope almost weekly. I want to expand on it a lot, so it's a lot more clear for anybody. Because I think right now it's a bit hard to read, maybe, and a bit short. So I want to make it more extensive and easier to see, especially with figures.
Yeah, white papers are no easy task. Once you get everything written out, whether it's clear or unclear, but then you can move on to create some more visual models from that white paper so that it's less technical and it makes more sense. Which it looks like you
I
guys are
agree. I
starting
agree
on
with
here.
Liz. I agree
Make a
that
white
we need a
video.
working video or some
Oh
kind,
yeah.
right? Especially on a test net, that should be the easiest low hanging fruit.
No, I volunteered to, if you guys got something to test or walk through from end to end, I'd be more than willing to work with somebody on a video.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, I'm going to try to get some kind of quarterly estimation of the next steps so that people know that it can be we commit to something, right? It's very good to have a deadline of some kind, even if it's a rough one.
The Vega with the movies, Vega's not too interested with the movie side of it, but more of the overall data. Um, Now, what I see us being able to do as part of a use case would would be to use Vega to basically help people find exactly the content they're looking for and walk them through easily how to distribute and publish it on the network, so that it's not so complicated, and do a lot of automated tasks for people on the network. And I think that would be where we would come in. But we're not just interested in only movies. Obviously, you can store any type of data of any kind on the network, and I think that gives us a little bit more that we can work with and test.
Yeah, it sounds good.
I think that one thing that I actually read on the other day was some of this. We talked about the police nodes, or whatever you want to call them, to kind of
Right.
verify the content is not malicious and verify that it's true to what is being advertised. I think that's something that I've read on that AI can do. You can actually have things automatically verify each one of the data sources as they're getting published and as they're being used, so that it kind of filters out a large portion of anything that's untrue. One sec. I've been working on connecting the databases that Asphyxia provided me with the front end. I built basically to allow to query the data that the database itself would pull first from the blockchain. I can't really comment a lot on the questions regarding EOS or the application layer itself at the moment. So.
Yeah, if you go to Novusphere-dev, you can see a tutorial how to set up the interface layer that Asphyxia has published. I believe that's what CodeBlue is working on. It's not everybody has to work with every layer of the project. It'd be too much of a task, and the front interface engineers are usually pretty good at their task, and they don't need to know every little detail about what creates the database originally. And I think in the past, I really liked the design he was using, the CodeBlue design for the front interface. I'm with you, Lutz. I just want to see live contracts so badly, live bounties. And, I have my own already, but they're still theory, and I'm basically just trying to break them and overload integers and anything I can do to see what are the issues I have to watch for. It's just such a novel system that it's a bit of a, you know, we have to protect against common issues.
Make some videos. I can work with you guys on that if you want, and then some use cases for what Vega can do as well, as you'd asked before. Because I definitely think a lot of different people can contribute to each one of these layers, not just us, but people like Code Blue that kind of independently jumped out there and started helping out. I think it would be
Yeah, I think
interesting to have
anybody
more.
can make closer.
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
sorry about interrupting. Uh, yeah, anybody can work on the front interface. So we have a test, basically, database interface now, and we can put, dummy files there. And if you can make an interface for that, go ahead. And if it's any good, Asphyxia is going to pay you for the work, basically. Or I'm not gonna say what he's going to do because I'm not him. But it seems like he's just looking for people to actually show that, actually making something that's with actual new data, and not just saying that we'll do it in the future. Uh, he's just paying basically people for working on stuff in real time.
Yeah, Code Blue setup. I've already got most of it done with regards to some filtering data, searching through the title, character name, actor name, genres, doing searches by first letter. I saw that as well.
Right, and ideally there'll be, like we talked about with him, about custom fields and so on, because you never know exactly what the characterization of the file will be.
You repost the link for that real quick so I can show it on the video replay. If anybody has that available.
I don't have a link for it right now.
Do you have that?
It'll take me a while to find.
If not, that's fine. I think I have it on one of the older videos. See if I can find it.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to address any concerns because there was a lot of basically, negative news about ES, and it was a bit, often exaggerated or something. But some of it is correct. Some of the issues are real. Like, it's not proof of work. It's not going to be as good at liveliness as proof of work, for example. But there's a lot of benefits we get as well. So if anybody still had concerns about using it, especially after a lot of news published like this last week from competition, let's say, it'd be good if people were asking those questions right now.
I think people are concerned about indecisiveness of where we're going.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Whether to use the chain or not to use the chain.
Right. For now, I'm still aiming to do it on the main chain because I think the benefits will outweigh the risks. As for our testnet, it's not going to be on the main chain, obviously, because it's going to be too expensive to publish it basically and lock up a lot of coins. So the testnet will likely be done on our own private EOS network, but the code will be identical to the final launch. So for now, I'll just assume we're going to launch in the main EOS chain, unless we just see a huge issue with it, like it'll be too expensive to buy the RAM or something. But the point is, instead of working on networking issues, we're already writing contracts, and we're not worried about the consensus layer as much because it's already handled for us by a much more well-funded company.
Yeah, so you don't think there would be any kind of technical debt with going down the test road that you're going on now, and if things don't work out where we don't see a possibility of working with EOS, then it shouldn't be too difficult to just work off your own. but
Yeah, I
it's
think
not
it
going to
makes no
create any
difference.
technical debt, from what you're saying.
It's it's a different kind of technical debt. If you're in control of blockchain, you control a lot of parameters in it. So if we give consent to somebody else, we might get more security because it's much more money to attack it. The distribution will probably be better. The we don't have to handle the consensus, so we might not be censored as easily. If somebody decides to censor any Novusphere transmission, right, they could. But if we're in a big chain, we can actually use all their dexes. We can use all decentralized exchanges. We can use the platforms that already have tokens. For example, from it will be trivially being able to add our tokens. Um, it's and I honestly I think this contract, the bounty system, is going to be amazing regardless. Even if there's, let's say, I don't know, 100 different competitions, there's still no reason not to submit bounties and not to fill the bounties.
All right, cool. You guys have any more questions, any concerns? How do you feel about piggybacking not only tech but popularity? Not sure I
It's
understand.
consensus layer is very hard. It's not it's like it's almost like reinventing the wheel sometimes, and there's just not always a good reason to do that. So it's a lot of possible security risks, a lot of attacks, long range, short range, censorship attacks, a lot of things to consider. And we're piggybacking on a security system that's been sort of working since 2014. I mean, even better, probably even more secure might be like a big proof of work chain. Maybe we can write it on like some kind of uh, risk clone or something, but we also wanted something with as little fees as possible so that it's as easy to use as possible. Yeah, it's possible. We can't really predict what the bad news or good news are going to be. Um, and especially now in this market, I can see how it could be, uh, a bearish time. But usually bearish times are when most of the development happens.
Let's see, Go Blue saying something.
Yeah, I'm trying to read the text slowly, but I don't have much else to say for now. I really like timelines, to be honest, and I can definitely see it's important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a code. I mean, of course, I code. Yeah. For now, I'm also well, I have a doctorate degree, so I do write papers professionally, basically. So that's what I've been trying to do in a lot of drafts. Um, Asphyxia and me have been using this like 40-page or maybe more document with detailing all the little intricate details of the project that you only see a part of in the cleaner white paper. So I've been trying to focus on my strengths and let him focus on his strength because he's far more experienced than me in working on blockchain layers, and but I'm trying to contribute as well on the smart contract layers. I also know React and all that stuff, Mern, but I'm
It's
not.
always
I don't really want to do that. I mean, I feel like there's other people who can handle that part, and I'll handle it if it becomes important.
JavaScript's not my thing either. Not my cup of tea. But React is definitely good too. Could know how to do
it. The end vision is okay. I'm speaking mostly for myself because I want to have Asphyxia boss man, yeah, say what he thinks. But the way I see it is going to be a self-sustaining network, basically, where any kind of content can be shared. It's going to be both a way to get new content. It'll be a way to access anything you want really quick, and if it's not there, you make a request for it. There's always incentives at any value to provide some kind of quality service of providing this content, no matter what it is, movies, files, doesn't matter. And if it's movies, you can filter it for, you can have front interfaces that just look at movies or just look at specific extension of the file. You have judges who analyze the subjective quality of it, right? Is it what the bounty asked for? And there'll be objective analysis as well. Is the file sharing being done? Are people uploading? So it's a lot of use cases that you see in stuff like storage or SIA, but that's the secondary part. And
I was gonna say I'd be interested to see, being able to access movies or something through, uh, like Android apps, or I know a lot of people know what Kodi is, and they've heard of things like Plex, and these apps that you can stream or keep your movies to be able to access those through. Novusphere, I think, would be an awesome end goal, in vision. Yeah, let me read what Code Blue had said. Code Blue says, whether EOS is the direction Atmos takes or not, we will need both application and blockchain layer in the project. So going with EOS is going to make it that much easier to launch. If there are concerns that come up, going back to finish building the blockchain layer is always possible. So
basically, yeah, and it's not necessary to we're not trying to reinvent the consensus layer, right? We're not trying to make a new alternative to proof of work or proof of stake. We're trying to build basically an app that uses decentralization as a tool, and it needs a tool to make it usable, so that the content providers keep growing the system. There's always incentives to join in and to contribute as a bounty hunter. You always have new people using it to view it if they want to. If somebody wants to make a request, that's where you go to make a request. It has to be as easy as low barrier to entry as possible for the new user.
John McAfee? Yeah. Who doesn't? Do you love him? I mean,
he's entertaining. He liked some of my comments. It was weird.
He says, hell yeah, I know you do. Oh, he always comes up for some reason whenever Lutz is around. I think he's like the Michael Jordan of Lutz's crypto fantasy.
I try not to focus on the popular culture of crypto too much, or the value as much anymore. I just want to put out cool stuff, that I want to use myself. I hate being in anything that I don't want to use myself.
Yeah. If you build it,
and I really want to use Atmos.
Yes, if you build it, they will come.
Yeah, so if it does become that much, we definitely want to finish it as soon as possible, right? But it just can't be something we focus on. We can't be putting out a countdown clock to hope for some kind of increase in value. It's just very dishonest. A lot of projects do this. It's just to drive some pointless attention that to disappoint people later.
What I'd like to see is when Bitcoin goes down, you got Vega and Atmos going up. That would be great to see, right?
Yeah. But
when Bitcoin goes up,
always focus on.
They both go up as well. That would be great.
That typically happens, right? The entire value of the market usually follows
the
Bitcoin.
Whole market,
But we can't be following the greed too much, If something becomes popular next month, we can't just suddenly drop everything, make that the priority.
Yeah.
I don't have much else to say, but I completely agree with Lutz. He brought up very good points that I think we have to address. Everybody who's on the team, or anybody who wants to contribute, that we want to have something testable as soon as possible.
a little bit of a timeline, I think it sounds like. But yeah, Lutz brought up some great things. Code Blue, we appreciate you jumping in.
Yeah, I think front interfaces are very important, especially with low barrier to entry. We really desire. Um,
I think we could probably wrap this up if there's no more questions. We appreciate everybody's time. I'll be reposting this with a replay on YouTube. And yes, we definitely appreciate you, Unicron. I know you're kind of put on the spot there, but definitely appreciate you being here and your time. Help clear things up with
yeah,
some of these
I hope to
EOS.
have. I mean, I want more than anybody to use the platform, so I'm really pushing for it consistently.
Yeah.
Probably a bit annoying to like internally, but you know, I like knowing where we're going.
Unicron is a sex machine. That is true. We're all pushing for you, man. We're all pushing for this to be, for Novusphere to be the next sexy new thing. So awesome. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. I'll have a replay of this, and then we'll repost it here in Discord.
Yeah, this will be fun. I think even if it doesn't get big too quickly, it's just such self-growing mechanism. It just makes perfect sense, incentive-wise, for it to keep growing. And we even saw back when we didn't have these rewards, it was already growing pretty easily.
Absolutely. Cool. All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right, good luck, everybody.
All right. Take care. Thanks, guys.